Hi, I'm Olivia.
And I'm Amy.
And this is a Girls in Marketing podcast. Every week, we release a new episode that you won't want to miss. Our guests are industry experts with amazing experiences, so you'll always come away with new nuggets of wisdom. From educational and inspiring episodes covering the latest in digital marketing to casual and fun chats with the Girls in Marketing team, unpacking marketing myths and trends, we've got it all.
Here at Girls in Marketing, we're all about empowering and supporting women to be the best marketers they can be through our online learning platform and community. Check out our resources and membership to get involved, as we'd love to welcome you to our inner circle.
Right, let's dive into an episode together.
Hello and welcome back to the Girls in Marketing podcast. Today I'm joined by Flo, Senior PR Strategist at Lush. We're going to be covering all things PR, Lush's approach to PR campaigns, and how to identify your own personal values and align them with the brand that you work for. I hope you enjoy this episode. It's going to be full of some really great insights, so stay tuned and enjoy the episode. So, Flo, I thought it'd be interesting to start off the podcast by talking a little bit about how you got into your current role at Lush, how you got into working with Lush at all, and what your journey has kind of looked like so far.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I started working for Lush actually 12 years ago in retail. So I started working in the shop in Germany at that time, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And then I worked in publishing, music PR, more of that, volunteered for festivals and stuff. So I did a lot of music PR, but then eventually settled at PR for Lush Germany. And then just focusing on blogger relations, it was called when I started.
Oh, it wasn't actually PR when you started, it was blogger relations.
It was blogger relations within the PR department.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
So that was
That's
a complete
amazing.
new thing when it started off. And then
which feels like quite dated now, doesn't it? Like the concept of like something called blogger relations feels quite...
You would really talk about content creators these days, wouldn't you?
Amazing.
Yeah, and then we actually opened a manufactory where all Lush products were handmade for Central Europe in Düsseldorf. So that was great. So I relocated for a while, focused on manufacturing PR, environmental PR, more of a business perspective of PR, really. So had a very varied role in the end within Lush Germany. And in 2018, I decided I want to relocate to the UK. So moved to Manchester. Had to leave Lush for a while. And I worked for a couple of different businesses, done a lot of like freelance gigs, and then eventually got back into Lush for the UK team. And yeah, now I'm in my current role. So I kind of lead the retail and regional PR strategy for the UK business, but also support all German-speaking markets with their PR strategy.
Amazing, amazing. And how is it that you've actually, or why is it that you've got into PR? What is it about PR specifically that's kind of drawn you and kept you wanting to stay in the industry?
Yeah, it was by accident, really, to be honest. And I don't really believe any person or any teenager thinks, "Ooh, I want to be a PR."
Yeah.
I think that's really unrealistic because you are always like passionate about something, or you know somebody who maybe works in PR or anything. But my big passion as a teenager, like many teenagers, was music. Music was everything for me. So every summer I spent at festivals, music gigs. So I volunteered for a couple of festivals besides uni. Then got into artist relations, really, coordinated interviews and everything. And then I ended up just working for major labels, booking agencies, big ones, small ones, whatever. And until I, at some point, found out, okay, the music industry was quite sexist, unfortunately, at that point still. And I remembered Lush. And I worked for them before, and I saw they had a role advertised. So, ended up working for them. But what I really love about PR and how I got into it in the end is listening to people's stories. So starting with like artists, I was interested in their lives, what they're doing. And I think similar to that, it's with any business or anyone you meet, you're interested in their story and you want to share the story. You are a storyteller in that way, within marketing anyway. And I think what's even a greater purpose now is you can be a storyteller and it can end into like collective change or anything. If you tell somebody's story, maybe more people are like taking action for a specific cause. And I just really like all the opportunities that come with that.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I definitely think that resonates a lot with people who work, in any industry, but definitely in marketing, that it's sort of like it's never really necessarily planned and you kind of find your way. And it's amazing that it's kind of come around for you 360 with Lush and that you've ended up back working for Lush in a PR sort of role. It's such an interesting story. I think that you've kind of gone fully back around. And I think one thing for the majority of our listeners that they will know about Lush in terms of their marketing is the fact that Lush obviously kind of came off social media, which at the time was, you know, a really big move, and I guess still is. It's a big thing to do, isn't it, for such a huge brand to kind of say we're going to, you know, come off social media and, you know, we're going to come away from it and that sort of thing. Obviously, I know that you were at Lush. Were you at Lush at the time when it actually happened? Yeah. And what was the sort of kind of I guess the reasoning behind that? What was Lush aiming to do with coming off social media? What was the message?
Yeah, I was actually at Lush both times. So
okay.
we left a couple of platforms actually pre-pandemic.
Right, yeah.
Because the brand team and the directors and everyone, they were just like monitoring social media, and there were always like concerns on like well-being. And the question really is social media, is it more media or is it really still social?
Yeah.
And I think many people just started thinking about that. But then the pandemic happened, and obviously it was such a shock for everybody. And we just had to find ways again to talk to our customers, and so we were again like on socials for a while. But then when the whistleblower files came out of Frances Hogan, in 2021, it was a pretty like quick reaction, and then we were just like, okay, we need to leave the Meta platforms and TikTok. And so we're still on a couple of platforms actually. So we're still on like LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitter, which we're currently like looking at.
I think everybody's sort of not really sure where they're at with Twitter at the moment, are they?
I know, but we switched off basically, and we just like changed the way we talk to customers instead of leaving socials.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, obviously you've not completely gone, you know, radio silent across the board on social media, but I think it was those bigger platforms, wasn't it? It was like the Meta ones and TikTok and stuff like that I guess maybe people would have more commonly associated with seeing the brand and stuff. So obviously it is a big move. How was that both times, I guess, communicated internally, both to kind of the people working in the social teams and in marketing and kind of the rest of the organisation at Lush? How was that message communicated? What did that look like?
I think, I think it's mixed, obviously, because some people were immediately like supportive, and I think Lush is a company that's definitely a campaigning company. So we do lots of like campaigns that you can see online or in the shop windows or something, or you can take part in generally, also very often together with grassroots and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think for some people it was definitely a shock. And for me as well, I have to say, my first thought was, okay. But I always knew, okay, shocking things happen.
Yeah.
But whilst reflecting and just like, obviously it was communicated, we will find where the community sit. We will find new exciting ways to reach our customers and to be part of communities. And we shouldn't really control the narrative as a brand of like a conversation within a community. And when you start thinking about it, it's true. Why would you control the entire narrative of a community? You don't own it. A brand shouldn't really control it. And I think by time it was definitely okay and accepted and supported as well by many. And I think there were lots of new opportunities, what we've done ever since, including like collaborations, ethical campaigns. We invested into retail. We found new ways to like reach our customers with real life experiences. So we had like people from our manufactory, for example, coming into the shop, making bath bombs, showing people like how it's made. People in the shops did events. There's loads of stuff that happened. Yeah,
well, that's the thing, isn't it? I feel like with Lush, they're so great at the experiential, like in-person, real-life experience side of things. And I think, you know, it sounds really shocking to say Lush came off social media, but it was kind of like they really played into their other strengths at the same time as doing that. And so have really kind of, I imagine, not felt too much of an impact because the other things have been, you know, at the forefront of what they do. And I know that you and I have spoken before about kind of the way that a lot of the Lush stores operate and how a lot of kind of like the store managers and the staff and the teams that work within the stores are given quite a lot of kind of opportunity to be involved in the things that happen in their stores because they, you know, it's acknowledged by Lush as an organisation that they have a really great understanding of their local community and what they want. And I think that's a really interesting approach to take to how the delivery of that sort of in-person stuff happens, because it's not Lush kind of top down enforcing that every store has to do all of these things. And it's just, this is across the board, you know, whether you like it or not, this is what you've got to do. How has that been for you kind of from a PR perspective working with those teams? Like, what's that relationship like?
I love it. And I have to say, in general, I know that it's a thing from working for other businesses and working like for agencies and stuff. I don't know any other brand, but yeah, people can let me know if they know any other brands.
Yeah, I think it definitely sounds like a really unique
where you
approach.
actually meet shop managers and you're like having conversations with them. I think I know like 70% of our UK and Ireland shop managers really, and I'm interested in like what they're doing and the projects they're doing, because why would we control the narrative, what is happening in their communities? I think our shop managers, I think PRs can actually also learn from them, because they're dedicated networkers within their community. They build these relationships with their customers, with other small local businesses they collaborate with like grassroots charities, etc. And it's just great to hear these stories and then to put them out and kind of help them maybe raise their profile through that. So yeah, it's a pleasure.
Amazing. And obviously you've mentioned kind of some of the grassroots community focused campaigns and stuff like that. How does that look internally for Lush, like going about creating those campaigns, working on those, ensuring that there is that collaboration between the people working in store and obviously the teams that, you know, are behind the PR and stuff to promote those sorts of campaigns? What does that look like, and kind of what are some examples of some of those campaigns that maybe you've been involved in?
Yeah, so we've got global campaigns, obviously, that are led by like our big ethical team, really, but every team within Lush is really involved into that. So it comes like later to the shop, but we really also have like community-led campaigns that you were like touching on as well. So one example is, I know we both live in Liverpool.
Yeah.
So Liverpool's our largest shop in the world. And they've got an extra like floor. So they've got 4 floors in total, but they host lots of community events and things. So for example, we had the biennial involved for our shop. So Sandra, the shop manager, would just come up with an idea. She had the contact of the biennial, and they were like asking, oh, could we maybe put 4 artworks onto your shop floor? Because they visited it before and she's such a great networker. And then we would just see what support does she need. She's got like an in-house videographer anyway. Then I talk to the biennial team and talk to Sandra's team, obviously, what do they need from a PR perspective? How can we like collaborate together? But yeah, and then we've got an events team, obviously, that's supporting the shop. So I think at Lush also, you kind of know many people within the business, even though you work maybe in a shop or you just like a part-time member of staff in a shop, you just kind of get to meet people throughout like the entire business.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that structure. And I know you said before, like, you've not necessarily heard of businesses who do things in quite that way. I think it is quite a unique approach. And yeah, we are both from Liverpool, and I don't know how I only found this out so recently from you, but I didn't realise that the Liverpool store is the largest one in the world, which is incredible. And I don't feel like I really knew that and kind of appreciated the fact that we have the largest one here, which is so cool. I think another interesting thing is that obviously through PR and stuff, you work with kind of a lot of like influencers and other sorts of people to kind of get Lush's message out there. And although Lush themselves aren't necessarily on a lot of the main social media platforms, obviously a lot of kind of the people that you work with are, how do you go about kind of leveraging working with influencers and other kind of influential people or organisations to spread Lush's message?
Again, it's really tailored, so we don't have like one way how we would do things, but we would always look, obviously, what every brand should do or is doing, like looking for brand matches, really. So a lot of stuff that we do or that we care about as a brand is like climate change, climate justice and everything. So currently we're working loads with creators in the climate justice space who really want to like drive change and everything. And like, the advertisement you want to like get out of it should never be just like some product placement or something. It should like be a bigger cause. And I know like my colleague Rachel, she's actually like leading the whole influencer strategy, and it's just incredible when you connect with these people, and that again like drives change because they tell you their story, and we can see how can we work together, how can we like contribute to make the planet maybe a bit better or to educate people. It's a lot about education as well. So yeah, we do work with creators from different spaces, but we focus a bit more about like YouTube platform, for example. But yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And obviously, like you say, a lot of what you do isn't just about focusing on product. It's not just about product placement, promoting your products, promoting your, what you sell, getting people to purchase. Obviously, that's a nice part of it, of course. But there are so many bigger kind of messages and important campaigns and ethical kind of values that Lush has that, a lot of your PR is centered around. And I know that you and I have spoken before about how important that is for you and how it aligns with your own personal values. So I thought it'd be interesting to touch a little bit on that and kind of how important it is for you working for a brand that really does align with your kind of personal values.
Yeah. It's really important for me, but I also want to emphasize that it's a privilege. And it's also, it really depends on the situation where people are in.
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge not everybody is always in a position where they can find a job and have a job that aligns with their personal values. Luckily, I was at a point where I could work for Lush and they align loads with my values. It's like also I'm not the brand, I'm just an individual. And I think my values throughout my life change and Lush's values might change. But I also had to work when I just moved to Manchester, for example. I was aware it was really like naive to think, I can find like a job in my second language just in the same profession that also aligns with my values. It's just naive. So I had to work for a fast fashion company for a while. One of those big ones that produce like many plastic items per day that then end up in the global south. And I just thought I hated every single day of work. And I just thought, I'm massively contributing to this. And I know it's not on the individual, it's always the company's responsibility, it's also the government's responsibility and everything. But I just thought as PRs and as marketers, our job is to drive sales, raise brand awareness and everything. And doing that for a brand where you think, this is actually wrong, this is actually damaging for the planet. Yeah. And I don't want to do that. So there's also that point. But at that time, I also knew I'm not going to do this forever. Yeah. This is just like a stop. So you have to kind of like focus what could be the next step. And luckily I'm now in a privileged position where I do have a job that I actually love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely agree. It's such an important thing to consider that it is definitely kind of a privilege to be able to work for an organisation that does align with your values, and not everybody will have that opportunity, and certainly at different points in their career. Like interestingly, like you said, when you first wanted to move to the UK, you acknowledged that actually to go into a job that I want to do that aligns with my values in my second language straight off the bat might not be that realistic for me. And just seeing it as a means to an end is a great way to look at it, isn't it? So it's not something that you're tied to forever. And obviously everybody does have completely different values and kind of I guess associates like a different amount of importance to each of those. And so it depends on how much it kind of bothers you or how comfortable you feel with it on sort of a day-to-day basis and things. But obviously now you've moved into working with Lush where things kind of align a lot more for you, and I imagine you enjoy going to work a lot more every day and kind of being involved in what you're involved in. Any advice that you might give to someone about maybe if there are any listeners who are kind of thinking that's super amazing that she can kind of work for somewhere that aligns with her values, but they're sitting there thinking, I don't really know what my values are. Any kind of advice for people to kind of actually identify what their values are and how they might kind of try and align their career and their industry that they work in with those sorts of things?
Yeah, definitely. So what I would always recommend is just like literally note everything down. Not everything down, but also acknowledge it will take time. Yeah. It's not done in a day. And values change throughout your life, throughout like different lifestyle situations and everything. But think about what are you passionate about? What kind of like other brands do you like? What kind of like institutions do you like? Are there any charities, NGOs you like? Did you spot any like campaigns on social media or anywhere that you really enjoyed and you thought, oh, this is really cool, innovative? Just note all of these things down. But also it could be something like, think about general things like honesty, transparency, those like big words that are big values, like what do you actually stand for? And I've got like one exercise that I actually do with students that I mentor, which is not really finding about your values maybe, but it is a little confidence boost and it is a bit of an outside kind of perspective. So I always tell them just ask 3 people in your life, like describing you in 5 words, and it could be like a good friend, it could be a lecturer, it could be somebody of your family or anything. And I think what comes out of that, and you put that next to the values that you thought about, it's just like a nice ground piece and might guide you already somewhere.
That's so interesting. Yeah,
I mean,
I've not thought to do that before. I mean, because I've heard of exercises of kind of that. Is it like that 360 feedback that I know a lot of organisations will encourage employees to do, where it's I guess a kind of a similar thing, and you'll reflect on what you think your strengths and your weaknesses are, and then you'll ask for kind of anonymous, I think generally anonymous feedback from other people that you work with and see if they match up or if your perceptions of yourself differ from how other people see you. But that's a really interesting way to approach it, actually. I really like that. And, I think it is important. Like, obviously, my work at Girls in Marketing aligns very closely with what I am passionate about and kind of, an area that I really want to work in. But I think it would be unrealistic to think that anybody's not at some point worked for an organisation where they've probably thought, I could do with getting out of here. I don't really believe in it. And I think it is, like you say, it is more difficult when you're in marketing or you're in PR or something, because, I think you could probably obviously you may still have, conflict over it, but you could probably more easily go into a job where you're a bit more behind the scenes and you're less involved in actually actively promoting this brand and not feel too guilty about it. But when your job involves, shouting about and promoting a particular brand, you really want to know that you're passionate and you care about it, don't you, really?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So coming back kind of to Lush's values and obviously everything that they stand for, Lush are very open about, their mission. And I think that this is just kind of a personal observation, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that sometimes brands that are quite open and honest about their missions, and I guess are quite, they make themselves quite vulnerable to criticism at times, because I often think that a brand that is quite open about their aspirations from an environmental perspective or, whatever it might be, opens themselves up generally more criticism than brands that just kind of, don't do anything about it but don't talk about it. I don't know if this is something that you've necessarily experienced, because I've seen it with other similar types of brands. I think there are examples kind of in like plant-based food products and plant-based milks and things like that, who are really active at talking about what their mission is and what they're trying to do. And then actually they'll get a lot of hate for that, because people will kind of nitpick all of the things that they don't quite get right, or, they'll find some flaws somewhere super far down the supply chain and hone in on that particular thing, when you're like, but what about these big fast fashion brands or these whatever that, are not claiming to do any of those things because they're really not trying at all. What's kind of your opinion or your experience on that at Lush?
I love that. And I kind of agree. It's two sides though, I think. It's the approach from the customer who maybe not be used to like some sort of change. Like you remember when it started, like when people started to be vegetarians and that became more popular, and like being vegan, and people just like the consumer just tried to find like something. Oh no, this can't be good, but you're not doing this and you're not doing this, and like pointing the finger at somebody, whilst it's just like a change and we need to process that. It's not normal yet. And on the other side, I think the criticism towards brands that are more ethical and are transparent, I think it is also fair enough. People should be critical and people should criticize. And I think if brands are greenwashing or if brands are like pretending to be something they're actually not, it's really important that they're being called out, and they just don't deserve to have like certain credentials. And I think that's why transparency is really important. If you do it right, if you're transparent, you kind of have identified your brand values and that is communicated, and you create campaigns that are not unrealistic. Like, again, I've seen like fashion companies that do like female empowerment campaigns, and then they don't pay their garment workers. Like, it's just not really like trustworthy. There's no credibility. So that shouldn't happen, obviously. But I kind of agree with the point.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess internally, from the perspective of maybe somebody who works in an organisation like that, and obviously maybe they're not quite in a position where they could, go and find a job elsewhere that aligns more with their values. They're not really in the position to do that right now.
Yeah.
Do you think there are any things that people can try to do to, within their capacity and their role, to try and, I guess, overcome some of those sorts of like greenwashing messaging or those sorts of things? Like, are there any small things even that people can do to speak up against things that they don't maybe agree with that are happening internally? Because I know it's a really difficult thing to do, probably, if you feel like you're, you know, a small cog in a big machine, and what difference will I make? Do you think there's anything people can do?
I think definitely. It depends as well, like where you're at. But if you feel like you can trust somebody in your direct teams, maybe talk to them first. If you feel like uncomfortable to like raise something with like a CEO or director or something directly, just try to like talk about it, share it with people, see where you can go to. And if you feel like, okay, my values really don't align with this company, there's actually no point really. I think one big thing is, even if you may not be in a position to change jobs directly or something, just educate yourself. I think obviously girls in marketing are a great platform, like to learn, upskill and everything. But there's also like, just think about, again, your passions. Is there anything what I want to learn, actually, any knowledge on the topic? Or if you have concerns about like whatever, greenwashing or any cause, like maybe just learn and educate yourself also about the topic. Share maybe those resources with people instead of like saying, hey, this is wrong, or just like you don't like it. Just show them actually a solution, or show them something they can learn, because I think education is really the key throughout your life and throughout your career.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. Kind of coming back a little bit to your career and your experience in PR. So I know that you mentioned you kind of got into it working within the music industry to begin with. And part of the reason that you loved that was the storytelling element of PR and what you can do to bring out people's stories. Would you say that's your favourite kind of area of PR? And how is it that you try to go about doing that, like, and kind of, you know, use people's stories, but from the perspective of, you know, kind of telling a brand story or whatever it might be? Like, how do you use individual stories in PR?
Just many ways. I think when you think about retail PR, for example, or regional PR, I would talk to a shop manager, have that conversation, see where can I actually place her? Are there like local podcasts? How can she give like an interview in like a local newspaper or something? We've had many shop managers who are really like within their cities, they're retail experts. So they speak like next to the mayor or like somebody from the BID or something.
Wow.
Like they are really seen as like retail experts because some of our shop managers have been like on the high street for like 18 years of experience or something. So obviously they're an expert in that field, but also there's loads of other experts. So we've got, for example, our Earth Care strategy lead, Ruth Andrade. I really, really love her. So she's originally from Brazil, and she works closely like with many groups across the world, like grassroots groups who really like fight against climate change, who've got like stories of hope almost, like, and find solutions. And we've got many of them also as suppliers for products, for the ingredients, and just telling her story directly, and also just have it organizing an interview even like with a journalist who might need like info on that and stuff. It's just great to see. It's also great how you can with that then create a change a bit, because you raise these stories, and also of those groups directly, of those people, of these people who are our suppliers. It's great to tell their stories, not only for us to show like what is actually in the products, what is behind it, and then again the consumer can like think about, okay, what is actually in the products that I use for my body or that I eat or something, but also you do something good with it, and you can always think a bit further.
Yeah, amazing. So any tips that you might give to someone who's maybe new to working in PR, who I guess, I'm thinking from our perspective, from like our community, I know quite a lot of people who work maybe in more general marketing roles, and then their organisations might say they want to kind of start getting into PR, doing a bit of that sort of thing. But I speak to quite a lot of people who, I guess, their organisation or maybe their managing director or somebody like that, their kind of perception of what PR is like, let's just write a press release about our product or about our organisation, and it's very kind of dry, it's very sort of just like factual, like these are our products, this is what we do. And it's like, I think a lot of people kind of are wanting to explore, like, how do they pull out the more interesting things? How would you say they could maybe go about kind of finding those interesting stories? What's the best way to kind of understand where there are opportunities to pull those sorts of things out?
I think it's really observing and communication and everything again. Like just for me, for having conversations with different people across the business, you just really get these ideas. Maybe if you work for a specific client, if you work in an agency, because I know many of your listeners might work for agencies and not like in-house, just read more about them, look at like similar companies, maybe visit a shop or something, see what the experience is like. And just have really like, I think just on site, have a bit of like a in real life experience, because I think honestly, sitting at your desk the entire day can be like quite boring. And some people do have that drive for creativity. I definitely don't, to be honest, and I never had it. And that's also why I started in music, because I was on site at festivals, volunteering. I've seen everybody there and I thought, oh my God, yeah, that's actually great. This is the story that I want to tell. See the bigger picture of it.
Yeah, amazing. So kind of in a similar sort of vein to that, then focusing on stories and things like that, have you got any favourite Lush campaigns that you've worked on? I know that you've worked on loads, and I know we've spoken before, and you were sort of like, oh, there's so many, and there are so many different types, right? So there's obviously ones that you'll do that are quite, they are more kind of maybe product focused, and you might like bring out a new product line with a big brand, and it's, you know, it's kind of hits the headlines and things because of this particular product, but you do the grassroots stuff and all of that other sort of stuff. Are there any standout ones that you've worked on that you just absolutely have loved?
We definitely had like big moments that I loved. For example, a couple of years ago when there was Fridays for Future and there was the big global climate strike, we closed all of our shops for for people and staff as well. If they wanted to, they'd be able to like join in and not like to ask customers to come in at that time, but maybe better to like join in if they wanted to. So I do really love that. I do love the Lush Prize. The Lush Prize is kind of like the highest donated prize against animal testing. So it kind of supports with the funding researchers, young researchers, lobbyists and stuff who develop new methods that are alternatives to and animal testing, which is amazing. So we do that biannually. We work loads with like grassroots, but we also do fun stuff. We just had Eurovision happening in Liverpool. I know it was the biggest event for the city, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was amazing.
For the North. So we had a takeover in the Liverpool shop by a fan community, and it was incredible. So I think it's a mixture of serious campaigns and serious issues, but also Lush is a fun company still, and I think there are fun things that can happen in communities that have to be celebrated. There's loads I can choose.
Yeah, and I get that, you know, there are so many, and I think that is an interesting point to make, that, you know, despite the fact that Lush have so many sort of serious issues that they do speak to in their messaging, and, you know, their mission is at times, you know, it's very ambitious and it's very focused on, you know, making change and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that they can't also be involved in, you know, really exciting and fun stuff that's happening as well. And obviously with Eurovision happening in Liverpool and the biggest Lush store in the world being in Liverpool, which I keep saying because it's incredible, it's amazing that obviously in your role you do get that fun balance of sort of both things. Just to kind of round off then, because I often like to do this when we get people coming in and sharing their expertise in different kind of fields with us. What advice would you give to anybody who is either just starting out their career in PR or is really strongly considering moving into working in PR? You know, maybe they've worked in marketing for a while and they've decided that actually PR is what they want to get into. Any tips or pieces of advice that you might give to them to kind of help them find their way and kind of find their way into a career in that?
I mentioned many of those things already earlier, but I do think about your passions, kind of identify your own values, think about companies that you like, people that you like, maybe create a LinkedIn profile or something, or see where people from brands you like are on. Send a message maybe if you've got like questions and you're unsure. You can always ask somebody who does the job in the actual company you want to work for. Do internships, work experiences and stuff, work at different places that you are actually passionate about. Don't really think about the focus on PR. If you're unsure, maybe think about your own passion, and then you can see if you do enjoy doing PR for it. And then at the same time, if you feel like, oh, some skills I don't really have yet, but I would need for PR, just educate yourself, do a bit of like upskill on the side, because it's also fun to learn.
Any specific skills that you think people could be working on?
It depends completely on the person. But I do think it's definitely, and I think it's always like the scare thing, networking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, I guess that applies to anything really across the board, doesn't it? The networking side of things, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think, with PR especially, I guess it's like it really helps to know more people in the industry and stuff.
And to be honest, it's still this like super traditional word where I'm like, well, networking isn't really networking what people think of networking.
Yeah.
Networking can also be like you follow somebody on Twitter and you have like a conversation, or you send somebody a LinkedIn message and it turns out in the end that person could be your mentor for like a bit of a while. It can happen virtually. It's not only those like big networking events where you have to go. It can happen actually anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be super scary. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think networking previously, people have thought of it as being something that's really daunting and you've got to really go out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But you don't really have to do that now.
Yeah, basically just think about your values, go out there and tell your story and connect with people.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. Really.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I definitely think that's really helpful. And it's so interesting to hear about everything that you're doing with Lush. And I know that you've got so much more coming up. So I'm so excited to see that. So thank you so much for joining us and coming on today. It's been lovely to chat.
Oh, thanks for having me, Amy. It was great.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the Girls in Marketing podcast. We love hearing from you, so if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review to let us know your thoughts and make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button to be the first to hear when our new episodes released. Don't forget, if you want to get involved with Girls in Marketing, check out our membership to join our incredible community of marketers. Think marketing resources, courses, webinars, and more. Find out more on our website or drop us a message on any of our social channels at Girls in Marketing.